Okay, and we're just going to delete all of this and make a little space here. So far we've learned Swift is the language, and Xcode is the IDE, they call it, or the software you use to make apps. And we learned something really early on called properties. So when you're coding, a lot of times you have these packets of information that you need to store, right? So what's the username? What's their what books have they purchased? Whatever it is your app is doing, you might need to store some data. So let's create a property called score, right? So it's pretty easy to create a property. There's two ways. We're going to do let. There's lets and there's var. Now you see I'm putting / in front of all this. That's to make it a comment. That means that this isn't going to compile. This is just text for the programmer. Let, when you declare a let, it's constant. It won't change. So that property is not going to change. If you use a var, then it's a variable and it can change. So a score, if you're playing a video game, the score is going to change, right? So it should be a var. So let's put it down here. Var, score, and we'll make it 0 because we just started, right? So let's say you, I don't know, collect a coin. So then you can do score equals score plus 1, right? So let me talk you through this then. So we're creating this thing, it's a variable, and it's called a score. And we're assigning it this property here, the property of 0, which happens to be a number property, or integer, they call it. So that means that whenever we refer to the word score, we're saying 0 at this point. But now we're assigning it with using the equal sign. We're assigning a score a new score. So now it's going to be score plus 1. So down here, if we want to print the score, we can do this. You may not have learned this yet, but this is a print statement. And print score. And what that's going to do is it's going to print the score down here in the bottom if my compiler ever works. Let's see here. So I'm going to click the blue play button, and hopefully what will happen is it'll run down the line here and then say, oh, there's a variable, up there's a score, and then print the score. And there we go. It took long enough, but here we are. So what it's doing is it gets to this point, it stores the variable inside of this score property. So the variable is 0. And then down here it says, hey, there's a score, but I'm adding 1 to it and printing it out. This here, the plus, is called an operator. There's all kinds of operators. There's plus, there's minus, there's greater than, or I'm sorry, there's less than, there's greater than, there's, less than or equal to, yada, yada, yada. So it's called an operator. And what else? Okay, so a constant is something that doesn't change. So we can store something else, like user ID, we'll say. And let's say there's a user ID and it's just some random string. So the string, when I say string, a string is like a sentence, a word, text, like letters, numbers, characters. Anything contained inside of these quotes is stored as a string. Now, you also notice that when declaring these properties, we're using something called camel case. Camel case is like starts with the lower letter, starts with the lowercase letter, and then you capitalize as needed. So I started with the lowercase letter and I capitalized ID here. You could also capitalize the, if it's like an abbreviation, then you could capitalize that as well. But as long as just make sure the first letter is lowercase, okay? The other thing is, this is how you declare a variable. I'm sorry. Oh, I meant to make this a let. So this is how you declare a constant property. This is how you declare a variable property. See, var, let, the difference is there. And you'll notice, like I said, this is a string and this is an int, an integer, number. So those are called different types. There's all kinds of different types, strings, arrays, bools, blah, blah, blah. But Swift will try to guess what that type is. You'll notice, like if you know any other programming languages, sometimes you have to declare what the type is. And Swift will just kind of guess. If you're ever curious, you can hold down the, the Alt key, or the Option key, and you'll see it turns into a little question mark there, and then you click on the object or the property, and you'll see it says user ID is a string. Now you see how it has a colon string there? Well, that's another way that we can tell it what type it's going to be. So for instance, now I've said let the user ID of type string and assign it to this bit of text here. So for instance, let's see, this down here, score, it's going to be an int, see, int. Well, what if the score is going to have a decimal point in it, right? Well, that's not an int. Int is a whole number. A decimal point is a double. And this is kind of a little bit new, but just kind of check this out. So you can do colon double here. And what that's saying is, yeah, I know it's a whole number, but I want it to actually be a double. So now if you hold down the Alt key and click there, it says score is a double. Now if we do score equals score plus 1.1, and we print that out, it should be 1.1 down here. And there we go, 1.1. Now if we hadn't made this a double and we said it was an int, then check this out. It's going to be pretty mad. See? It's mad. Now whenever you see a red circle like this with a dot in the middle, that means there's an error. If you see something red, it's an error. Sometimes there's an exclamation point, sometimes there's a dot in the middle. If there's a dot in the middle, it's going to have some kind of a guess as to how to fix that. And so it's got some ideas on how to fix it. But we know that our actual fix, the best fix, was just to call it what it is up here. Make it a double if you want a double. So again, there's a bunch of different types. The types you'll be concerned with so far, I think, are just strings and integers. There's also doubles. There's arrays, which is an ordered collection of thingies. And then there's dictionaries. What else? There's bools, which is like true or false. And, there's all kinds. You can even make your own types. So you can make your own types, your own stuff. But these are the ones you might need to know to start with here. Okay. So I think that kind of covers, roughly speaking, what you've learned in the first couple weeks. Is you've learned properties, you learned camel case. You also even learned that you can add properties together, right? So if there's this thing and a bonus point is equal to 1, then you could, instead of score equals score plus score, you could do score equals score plus bonus point. So now you're adding two properties that are stored together. Now it doesn't like that because it's looking for a double. And one thing you need to know is that Swift is pretty specific about types. So let's make this a double also so that we can add them together. That way they match. Okay. If you have any questions about this, you can leave a comment on the video on my YouTube channel, Cracking Code with Dave. Otherwise, reach out to me via Canvas if you're one of my students, and I'd be happy to set up a time we can go over all this and more. Hopefully you stay safe out there. And if you have any questions with this, again, let me know.